The apocalyptic raiders of 1200 BC who changed history. Picture this: in the span of a single lifetime, every superpower you know simply vanishes. No more Hittite mail. No more Mycenaean palaces. Even the mighty Egyptian pharaoh is begging his gods for grain. Who, or what, could pull off a Bronze Age apocalypse of this monumental scale? Enter the Sea Peoples, this shadowy pirate coalition you've probably never heard of, yet whose hit list reads like a who's who of the ancient world. Stick around, because by the end you'll realize their fingerprints are still on the map you see today. Welcome to Legends Untold. Kindly subscribe and share. 1 minute the Eastern Mediterranean is humming with trade, taxes, and giant libraries of clay. The next, coastal cities are brutally torched, refugees clog the roads, and a desperate scribe in Ugarit writes, "My father, behold, the enemy's ships came." That chilling letter was never mailed, because the city was already ash. In the 40 years that followed, civilization essentially hit delete for 3 centuries. So, who pressed the button? Section 1. The perfect storm. It didn't start with swords, it started with weather reports locked in cave stalagmites. Tree ring and lake dust data show a mega drought between 1250 and 1150 BC. Harvests failed for decades. Hittite kings wrote frantic letters asking Egypt for grain. Imagine Amazon begging for emergency supplies today. Starving farmers became marching refugees, and hungry states trimmed their border patrols first. Climate scientists call it a systems collapse domino. The ancients probably called it the end of days, and they weren't entirely wrong. Section 2. Meet the Sea Peoples. Out of the blue, or rather, out of the Aegean, Sardinia, Sicily, and western Turkey, came terrifying flotillas bristling with horned helmets and long swords. The Egyptians painted them in vivid detail at Medinet Habu, Shurden with disc-topped shields, Shekelesh sporting feathered headdresses, and Pelset warriors sporting the first recorded crew cuts. They weren't a single nation, you see, they were the original pirate alliance, equal parts desperate migrants and opportunistic mercenaries. And they had one playbook: hit the ports, torch the granaries, then melt away before chariots could form up. Section 3. The empires strike out the Hittites. Gone by 1180 BC. Their capital Hattusa was so thoroughly burned that later travelers thought it was a natural rock formation. Mycenaean Greece. Palaces emptied, linear bookkeeping stopped mid-sentence. Cyprus lost every major town. Archaeologists call the layer destruction horizon, a polite term for apocalypse. Egypt alone survived, and only barely. Pharaoh Ramesses III claims a great victory, but his own temple inscriptions brag about feeding the survivors afterward, because the Sea Peoples had settled right next door in Canaan. Spoiler alert, those settlers became the Philistines that future Israelite heroes like David would face. Section 4. The domino effect. Collapse the ports and you collapse the supply chain. Copper from Cyprus, tin from Afghanistan, grain from the Nile, none of it moved. Without bronze, armies rusted. Without bronze, tax records vanished. And without taxes, kings couldn't pay scribes or soldiers. Literacy, architecture, centralized law, all cut by 90%. The world shrank into village strongholds ruled by local strongmen. Historians call the next 3 centuries a dark age, but for survivors it felt like the lights had been turned off for good. Seriously, imagine that. Section 5. New world from the ashes. Yet the blackout birthed something new. Smelters, cut off from tin, experimented with iron. Iron ore is everywhere, so small villages could tool up without waiting for royal caravans. Independent city-states such as Israel, Moab, and Phoenicia filled the vacuum, trading by sea instead of land. The alphabet, shorter, simpler, replaced cuneiform clay with ink on potsherds. In other words, the catastrophe that erased kings also democratized writing, metal, and eventually power. If you like seeing how climate, migration, and military tech can rewrite the planet, tap subscribe and ring the bell. More ancient game changers are on the way. Drop a comment, Which sea people name do you think sounds most like a heavy metal band? Mine's the Washesh. So the next time someone claims history is steady progress, remind them of 1200 BC, when the world's most sophisticated civilizations were humbled by drought, desperate voyages, and a perfect storm of bad luck. The Sea Peoples didn't just raid cities, they raided the entire Bronze Age playbook, forcing humanity to draft a new one in iron and ink. Their ships sank 3 millennia ago, but their ripple effects still shape how we live, trade, and sometimes, how we fall.